Congratulations, you have a DNA center. Now what? Here I'd like to walk you through how I like to get my DNA center started from after install all the way up through monitoring my devices and assurance. A lot of this is going to be basic configuration, and as this series progresses, I would like to eventually get to those more advanced use cases. But this is probably one of the number one things that I get from my customers about DNA Center is they get it, they've got it installed. Now what do I do with the thing? There's a lot that can be done, and most of it is really up to you. But these are the steps that I like to do on initial install.
Welcome to Clarity.
Alright, so we've got DNA Center installed, and these are the order of operations that I usually like to get everything started up on. So the very first thing that we need to do is build our site hierarchy. If anyone is a Prime user, you're going to be very familiar with getting a hierarchy built out. And all the site hierarchy is a logical grouping of locations. So I like to start with an area. It can be a city, a county, really whatever works best for you and your logical organization. So this doesn't have a huge impact. A lot of this is just user driven, whatever works best for your workflow. So in this particular case, I'm going to go ahead and build this as if I was still a customer at Pasco County. And then you can see under global, I've created Pasco County. And then from here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a building. So for the buildings, it likes to use addresses. And the cool part is that once you start putting in the address, DNA Center will kind of do a search, autofill for it. You'll get your longitude and your latitude. You can even zoom in on the map and see the building exactly where it's at. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add that. And then you can see it's already starting to get nested. Into here, and then we'll go ahead and we will add a floor. And again, this can be called whatever you want. The floors are nice. Because here, if you have them, and I strongly recommend that you do get them at some point, you can add the floor plan to your site hierarchy. And then this will help a lot with AP placement. I don't have any APs in this example. In future videos, I'll show a little bit more about that. But having the floor plans early is best, so that way as you're building this stuff out fresh, you can just load them in and then you can circle back later and kind of get the walls drawn in on them and get the APs placed. But it's a little time consuming on the front end, but it'll be worth it on the back end. And just for the sake of having a little more options, I'm going to add a second building. This will be the East Pasco Government Center. Once again, we can start putting in the street address, and it'll kind of grab the rest of it for us. And then from there, you can see how it automatically maps it. And for East Pasco Government Center, we're going to go ahead and we're also going to add a first floor. All right, and that's all there is to it, to building your site hierarchy. So whatever makes the most sense for you, you're going to go ahead, you're going to add your areas, then your buildings, then your floors. Once we get over to the network design section, it may start making a little more sense on how you want to get everything grouped together. So that being said, let's go ahead and head over to Design and Network Settings. And this is pretty important here, the inherited settings. So what that means is that anything that you set higher up will be inherited to the lowest level. So if you have a lot of standard configurations, same DHCP servers, same DNS, all of that can be built globally, and then you can just let the other sites and buildings and floors inherit that. And then if you have a one-off for this particular building or even this particular floor, you can go in there and you can change those individual settings. For our situation, we're just going to go ahead and we're just going to build it in global because I don't really have anything specific to the individuals just yet. So I don't have any DHCP servers, but this is where you would set one. We can just go ahead and kind of make one up. Your DNS server with your domain name. Again, we're just going to kind of make some of this stuff up because none of it's built. We'll actually move these to the back end. And then you can go ahead and set a message of the day if you'd like. Or whatever your standard is. So additionally, we can add more servers. There's a AAA server. We'll get into that a little later when we talk about getting ICE integrated. Strongly recommend that you do use ICE with DNA Center. The earlier you get that on there and integrated, the better off you're going to be. So whereas DNA Center is your orchestration server, ICE on the back end is really that policy enforcement server. You can use a regular Radius server, such as tying DNA Center directly into AD. I've never done it before, but it is a thing. I strongly recommend that you use ICE so that way you can get that policy enforcement built and then automatically deployed for you. But again, we'll go over that when we get into the more advanced use cases. NTP, usually something that you're going to want to go ahead and check. And then Stealth Watch or Secure Network Analytics. We don't have that running. And again, a lot of those integrations we'll cover in more advanced videos. All right, and from there, we're going to go ahead and we're going to save. And then as we roll down, right, we're going to see all of these are the same. Now, if for whatever reason we have different DNS or different DHCP, where I see this come into play a lot is actually with the AAAs using ICE. A lot of the times you'll want to change which sites use which PSNs. That's what I see a lot of the changes for away from the global inherited config. But it is nice to be able to change every site if you want. But again, for our cases, we're going to go ahead and we're just going to remove that. And then here we can go ahead, right, just for something simple. Just so that way we can kind of see what those differences are. And then again, part of the inheriting structure is because we changed it at the West Pasco Government Center, the building level, the floors inherit that. But if we wanted to, we could change, welcome to West Pasco first floor. So all of these settings are overridable down to the lowest level. And then we're actually going to go over here to telemetry. And in telemetry, we just want to go ahead and say, yes, we want to use DNA Center as a NetFlow collector. So then we want to go ahead and we want to enable DNA Center for wired endpoint data collection, and then we're going to leave enable wireless telemetry. So now that we have our hierarchy set up and our network settings built, we want to go ahead and set our device credentials. And we want to make sure that we do this globally. Again, device credentials can change down to the per site. So we're going to add CLI. You can name it whatever you want. And then your enable password. So I'm going to assign these globally so that way when I go to discover devices, I don't have to keep adding them in there. All of the device credentials are specifically for your discovery that we're going to get to right after this. And we're just going to kind of keep rolling through. The very minimum that you need to have to do discovery is your CLI credentials and your SNMP. With those two, you'll be able to discover all of your devices. For all of your switches, routers, CLI, SNMP, that's it. If you get to a wireless LAN controller, you're required to have netconf configured for that. But we'll go over WLCs in another video. So after we get the device credentials, now we can go ahead and we're going to go to Tools and Discovery, and we're going to go find our switch. So we've got to go ahead and we've got to name our discovery. So we'll do and this can be named whatever you want. And then typically I'll go ahead and I'll do the IP range. And I'll just put that range in there twice. So unfortunately, there's no option for an individual device, but that doesn't matter so much. You can do CDP type discovery and LLDP as well. Usually it's just easier to do the IP address / range. You can ignore the subnet filters. If you are running loopbacks, you can go ahead and you can select this radio button, and if your network device has a loopback address, that is the address that DNA is going to log as the management IP when it runs the discovery. And then because we set these up under device credentials, under design and network settings, we already have our CLI login and our SNMP set. If you do, for whatever reason, have a one-off for a particular device that you're trying to add, you can add it here. You'll click the save button. You don't have to save as global if it's just a one-off, and it'll add it to this specific discovery. And then when you go to run another discovery in the future, that option won't be there because we did not save it globally. All right, and that's about all we need to do. So you can definitely set this for later if you want to run the discovery. I find that there's no harm in running it now. Typically, we want to get these devices pulled in so that way we can get them provisioned, assigned to a site, and assurance running. Before we do the discovery, just so that way we give people some warm and fuzzies. One of the things that I really want to do with this channel and these videos is kind of demystify a lot of what DNA Center is actually reaching out and doing to these devices. So now we've got a clean show run without DNA Center touching the switch at all. We'll run DNA Center with device controllability enabled, and then we'll go check and see what DNA Center actually put on the switch. So now for this, we can check and see the status of the discovery under tasks. And if we click this, it'll jump us over to the tasks menu. to find the tasks, that's actually over in activities, and then you'll see a sub tab for tasks. For discovery though, you don't have to do that. You can just click on the discovery after you start it, and you can see that it's in progress, and we'll get little go or no goes, little checks or X's over here. So once our device is discovered, we then want to go to design an image repository. One of the other really cool things about DNA Center, and especially the 2.3.3 update, is now we get security advisories based on the software image. So as we're going in here and we're deciding what image we want to be our gold star, we can take a look and see, are there any critical advisories that are tied to that image? Actually, let's take this one step further. So this is my DNA center that I'm running at the house. And now this will just be a better example of what we can see in regards to the security advisories. So as you can see, this is the gold star that we set on 17.6.3. There's no current advisories for this iOS for the Catalyst 9200. But part of the cool thing is that we can go ahead and we can click and see what the security advisories are. Not only do we see the security advisories, but we get the CVE numbers. Even more important than that, we can click it, it'll pop out, and it'll take you to the actual Cisco security advisory page. So that way you can go ahead and you can get more details on what exactly this advisory is for, what the vulnerability is. It just makes things a lot easier, especially if your security team is really watching these CVEs as they come out. You can just take a look right here under your image repository and tell them, hey, look, like I'm good. That particular advisory is not associated with the software version that we're on. Conversely, if you are impacted by that security advisory and your security team is forcing you to upgrade away from that, you can choose a software image that is not impacted by that particular CVE. And I'll go ahead and I'll link to the swim video that I made, and I can show you how you can upgrade your switches software very easily from DNA Center. That's a huge use case that I personally use with DNA Center a lot, is scheduling upgrades, so that way I don't have to sit there and babysit a switch stack as I have to upgrade, especially if I'm upgrading for security compliance and I may have dozens if not hundreds of switches that I need to get upgraded. I want to go ahead and I want to set clusters of those switches to upgrade, so that way I can knock it out as fast as possible. Now that it is discovered, we can go ahead and we can head over to provision and inventory, and we should see it under unassigned devices, which we do. It is doing a sync. This is very common. So the sync, it's just kind of polling the device and pulling in information, so that way you can go ahead and it can check and make sure that it does meet compliance and all sorts of other information about the device. And if we click in here, you can see all sorts of information that it's already pulling in. Does pull the configurations, so we'll go ahead and we'll let it finish getting its sync, and then from there we will move on to the next step, which is to provision the device. Now let's go ahead and get it provisioned. DNA Center about this particular device. So we're going to select the device that we want to provision, actions, provision, and you can assign the device to site or you can provision it. So in this particular instance, when you provision the device, it will definitely push all of the configuration, any profiles or templates, anything assigned to that particular site that you're going to add the device to. This is full blown. So the assign to site, I'm honestly not sure what configuration this will push to the switch. So why don't we go ahead and we'll assign it to the site first, and then we'll provision it, and then we can go ahead and see the differences between them. So we're going to choose the site. In this particular case, let's go ahead and let's put it in West Pasco Government Center, and let's say first floor. Now the devices, you don't have to assign all the way to the floor level if you don't want. We could just assign it to the building itself. But in this particular case, let's go ahead and let's just drop it on the floor. And we'll click next, and now we can see that although TrustSec is not enabled, we have DNA Center as a NetFlow collector, SNMP trap receiver, and syslog server. And it will go ahead and it will deploy the DNA certificates to the switch. So when the device is discovered, it just adds it to DNA Center's inventory, and then after it's discovered, assigning it to the site will add all of the information gathering settings as well as the certificates to allow DNA Center to appropriately manage the device. So let's go ahead and this is also a feature. Let's go ahead and let's run this first. Most of the configuration settings in DNA Center now will allow you to generate a configuration preview, which I find is incredibly helpful because you want to know what DNA Center is doing before DNA does it. That way you get a little more comfortable with the configuration that it's pushing, you're a little more confident, and DNA is doing actually what you want it to do, and you understand what it's doing. So we can take a look here. It is building that configuration preview for us, so we'll go ahead and we'll wait for that to load, and then we'll provision the device, and then we'll review what configuration it's going to push as it's pushing. Alright, so we can see that the configuration preview has been generated, so now we're going to go back over and let's get this guy assigned to a site. Again, and we're just going to crawl, walk, run this, so that way we get really comfortable on what DNA Center is doing, and then as you are more comfortable, instead of assigning the device to the site first, you'll just go ahead and you'll just provision it. And part of that provisioning component is adding the device to the site. And again, this could be scheduled for any time you would like. However, we're just going to go ahead and we're just going to provision it now because a lot of these changes are completely passive. It won't affect production at all. So we're going to let this do its thing, and let's head back over here. And again, to get to this menu, you're going to go to activities, and here you can see the tasks that DNA is working on or the work items that you had DNA Center do for you. And this is all the configuration that DNA Center is going to push to your switch right now. So if we head over, we should see it gone from unassigned devices because the device is now assigned. And then if we click Pasco County, right, we can see it. If we click East Pasco, we won't see it. And again, if we click West Pasco or floor 1 specifically, we can see it. So now this device has been configured. We can see exactly what DNA Center has pushed to it. All right, and the last step is to finally provision our device. So we're going to go, we're going to select the device again, actions, provision, and then provision device. From here, we would assign it to a site if it wasn't already assigned, but it is, so we're not going to touch that. Under advanced configurations, there are no advanced configurations assigned to this. There's no templates, there's no device models. Again, those we'll get into in later videos when we cover template editors and things of that nature. And then really taking a look at this, a lot of this config has already been pushed. All of this down here from the Cisco TrustSec credentials down, and then from the DNS primary server up. These are the configurations that we built under the network design. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to push these. And again, we could do a generate configuration preview, but at the end of this, I'm going to show some compares so that way we can see what DNA Center's done and you guys can review those. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and we're just going to roll with it because this video is getting a little on the longer side. And again, everything we can go ahead that DNA Center's doing, we can take a look at under the tasks. All right, and the provision is now complete. And we have a fully discovered, fully provisioned network device. Now that our device is provisioned, we've gone through and we've built our hierarchy. We've set our network design configurations and credentials. We've discovered our devices. We've set our standard or our golden image based on our organization's policies. We've provisioned our device. And now let's go take a look at what DNA Center does best. And that is getting visibility on our network. So we'll go over to Assurance and Health. And sometimes you'll have to refresh it when you first come in. If you'd noticed the timestamp was at like 8 a.m. So I refresh it here. That took us to current. And we can see that we have one switch. It's listed as a core currently. You can change what level that switch stays on under provision. We don't have any of our AAA or ICE integrations, and we don't have any of our DHCP integrations set up either. But we can take a look here and we can see that our device does look healthy. We've got all of our nice little checks here. You can click the green and kind of see the devices that are in green. If we had any red, you could click the red and it would show you the red devices as well. And we can move over to the network. And we just get a good idea of how our network is performing. So unfortunately, this is a brand new switch we just added. There's literally no clients on there, so there's not a whole lot to show here. But this is where you want to get to. You want to get your devices discovered. You want to get them provisioned and added. And then you want to get into Assurance and start taking a look and seeing how those devices are performing, what applications are running on your network, whether they're business relevant, irrelevant, how your clients are experiencing the network. This is hugely important. It's not enough to just maintain connectivity. It's not enough to say, oh, well, I can ping it, so it's up. The network is growing more and more, and unfortunately, there's a lot more responsibility being put on network administrators to make sure that not only is connectivity there, but what is the customer, the end user's experience on the network. As we keep rolling out these videos, I will definitely have one built specifically around Assurance with network and user data populated in here, so that way you can get a really good look and a feel on, okay, well, I have all of this data. Now what? What am I looking for? How do I use it? How do I best leverage it? So that way I stay ahead of my users and make sure that their experiences are good. So I hope you guys enjoy. This is just, kind of a bare bones quick start guide on what to do once you get DNA Center installed and how you kind of get it up and running. Again, we will come out with more and more advanced use cases. Also, ICE integration, definitely on the list. I'm probably going to have one of my peers, Cody Berger, assist me on that because I am not great with ICE. But DNA Center makes things a lot easier in regards to using ICE. And I already have a video on Thousand Eyes integration. I definitely recommend that if you have Thousand Eyes and some Cat 9300s with Advantage license, get that added, get that stood up. You're already paying for it, so you might as well get some utilization out of it. Like I said earlier, just knowing that things are up and you can ping it, it really isn't enough anymore. Being able to say, hey, if your CIO or your network manager is beating on your door that users are having a problem getting to O365 to log in, you can have a Catalyst 9300 at one of those particular impacted sites already running polls to O365 login, and then you can pull it up in DNA Center. If you need to get something a little more robust, you can launch it into Thousand Eyes and show them, hey, I'm clean all the way through here. The problem looks like it's at, somewhere in the ISP's cloud. So that mean time to innocence is very important, and DNA Center and Thousand Eyes and all of our point products really can kind of come together and give you a much better visibility solution. So thank you guys. I hope you enjoy. If you have any other questions, comments, if there's any other things that are top of mind for you, please just let me know. Let us know in the comments, and we can go ahead and we can try and get a video spun up specifically on that. So thank you very much for your time.